morning and welcome to SEM-TV Morning Pulse, your daily heartbeat of reliable news and vibrant entertainment. From Port Harcourt to the world, we bring you the stories that matter, the conversations that inspire, and the energy you need to power your day. So, wherever you're watching from, wake up, Morning Pulse, and let's get your day started.
It's a bright Thursday morning, and here is SEM-TV Morning Pulse coming to you live from Pawtucket, Rivers State. Today, particularly, we want to start by congratulating the Muslim faithfuls in Nigeria and all around the continent of Africa and the world at large who are celebrating the Eid al-Kabir celebration. Of course, this is one of the significant celebrations in the Muslim calendar where the Muslim faithfuls celebrate or the commemoration and the remembrance of the significant event when the Prophet Muhammad agreed and submitted himself to sacrifice his son to God out of God's demand. Of course, it also tells of the exchange that happened when the son of the Holy Prophet was replaced by the animal provided for him by God. And perhaps this re-echoes the comments made by Nigeria's President Bola Ahmed Tinubu yesterday after worshipping in Lagos State that in the Holy Quran, when God talked about sacrifices, it was never about human beings, but about animals. And so, as far as the Quran is concerned, the actions of non-state actors, terrorists, Islamic extremists, who have continued to cause harm to the generality of Nigerians and have made it to the front burner of conversation when it comes to global security and international security, has strongly been condemned by Nigeria's president. A lot of reactions trailing the president's comment, but of course, while congratulating the Muslim faithful, it is also a moment of sober reflection as Nigerians are calling on the different imams and Muslim scholars across the African continent and the world to go back to the drawing board and then, of course, live by the values, the status that the Holy Prophet left behind and be able to streamline the activities of their followers and nip in the bud that of the extremists that have consistently become a pain in the soul of every living person as far as insecurity, terrorism, banditry, and every form of heinous crimes is concerned. My name is Francis Oyemaidet, and I welcome you to SEM-TV Morning Pulse. Of course, we have a lot of segment, and I'm taking you right into the dailies, of course, where we take you to the front pages of our national dailies and look into some of the news that have made it to the front burner of conversation. And for this morning, we are starting with the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper. And of course, on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper, the screaming headline, 13 days after Borno, are your pupils still in captivity? That's the screaming headline on the front page of Daily Trust this morning. Of course, we're talking about the kidnapping that happened in Oyo State of the school children that were abducted. We also have been following up on that story, and you would recall that one of the teachers was beheaded, and another who happens to be a nursing mother sent a very emotional video out that's recirculated yesterday, being the Children's Day, with the likes of Dr. Ezekwali calling on the political class in Nigeria to not dare to celebrate and wish any Nigerian child a happy Children's Day. But regrettably, we saw the fanfare happening across the length and breadth of Nigeria, with the Nigeria's president promising, the parents of the abducted school children that they will be returned, and ordering the security chiefs to tighten security, particularly around the school environment. We'll look at how that will evolve in the days to come. Above the masthead, former Deputy Senate President Omar Agege quits APC. You can find details on page 10. Page 16 has telecom operators' customers spent 9 trillion naira on airtime in 2025, according to the report. Son who allegedly killed father over food lynched. Page 13 has details of that story. And then, of course, there's a picture story about a different celebration of the Eid al-Kabir. You have one from Enugu, we have from Lagos, from Nasarawa State, and of course from Kano State. NDC to ratify OB as 6 parties pick flag bearers. Page 5 has details of the story. And those are the major stories you'll find on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper. The next paper this morning will be the front page of the Punch. And of course, for this morning, the screaming headline, Children's Day, Captive Oyo Borno pupils cast shadow of a celebration. Page 2 has details of the story and the writer to the story. Tinubu Makinde reassure families of as anxiety deepens over kidnapped pupils. We also have CAN, NUT, parents demand action on abducted pupils. Teachers threaten shutdown. Ogun to deploy a motorcore hunters in schools as fear spreads. Of course, above the masthead, we see capital projects get only 26% of federal government's 12 trillion naira loans. Picture 9 has details of the story. Trump directive triggered anti-ISIS strikes in Nigeria. Hexa, that's on page 8. Tinubu confers record 1,062 national honors in 3 years. Page 10 has details of that story. And of course, there's a picture story on the front page of Punch talking about the Muslims celebrating. We have left right, the Minister of State for Defense, Bello Matawali, Chief of Staff to the President, Femi Gbajabiamila, the National Security Advisor, Nuhuri Badu, son of the President, Yinka Tinubu, of course, President Bola Tinubu, Lagos State Deputy Governor Obafemi Hamzat, Speaker, Lagos State House of Assembly, Mudashiru Basa, and former Lagos State Governor Babatunde Fashola during the Eid al-Kabir prayer in Lagos yesterday, being Wednesday, at the State House. And then, of course, to wrap up the stories on the front page of the Punch newspaper, we see Southwest on path to Northwest insurgency crisis. Thus, according to a retired general, details are on page 3. We also see Taiwo, or 2 Ocean undergraduates killed in suspected coal clash. Page 4 and 5 has details of that story. And page 7 has Omogege dumps APC after senatorial primary defeat. Well, that was expected, and you'll recall yesterday we talked about the fact that the floodgate for defection and cross-carpeting has just been opened by the court decision, which has nullified the timetable presented by INEC, even though INEC has gone ahead to appeal the case, which is still pending. Legal experts have declared that there is no local standing for INEC to even appeal the case in the first place, because the declaration was just stating what the provisions of the law and the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria has declared, which cannot be breached. But we watch and see whether the law still holds fort for the high and mighty of the political class in Nigeria. Now we move to the back page of the Punch newspaper. Of course, there are a few articles you'll be interested in reading. The first, those who will lead us can't even organize themselves. That's an article written by Abimbola Adelekun. Of course, detailed article there, something you like to read up. Another article by Marcel Mbamalu, of course, is titled Jonathan, Silence on the Ballot. Jonathan, Silence on the Ballot. That is an intriguing topic there. Of course, we have another article also. Different postures, pictured news stories there. We have that of the Vice President, the Sheikh of Borno, Bubakar El Kanami, who is left, and of course the Vice President Kashim Shettima during the Eid al-Kabir prayers at the Ramal Square Eid ground in Maiduguri, Borno State yesterday. We also see the Inspector General of Police, Olatunjide left with students of police officers' wives association school Abuja during the activities on commemoration of the 2026 International Day of the Boy Child in Abuja, which happened on Tuesday. Those are the conversations on the front pages and the back page of the Punch newspaper. Of course, the next stop will be the front page of the Nigerian Tribune. Screaming headline, Tinubu to parents, kidnapped pupils in Oyo, Borno, you are not abandoned. Page 4 has details of the story. The writer to the story says abductees will be back home soon. Makinde gives assurance. Wait and see if that will always come to be, or that's just another political rhetoric on an eventful day, just as the Children's Day celebration. Above the masthead, we see Atiku emerges ADC presidential candidate. Page 15 has details of the story. Omoagege quits APC amid Delta crisis. Page 29 has details of that story. Of course, there's also a picture story. From the left, we have Mutuare, Senator Gani Solomon, the Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, his wife, Senator Oluremi Tinubu, the Lagos State Deputy Governor Obafemi Hamzat, and his wife, Oluremi Hamzat, former Minister of State for Defense, Musiliu Obanikoro, and Senator Wasiu Eshinokun during the Eid al-Kabir celebration. And of course, it's the homepage of the president. The photo was taken yesterday. Nigeria East South Africa air cargo corridor cuts costs by 75%. Minister, page 7, has details of that story. We'll also see Lagos unveils new tenancy bill to regulate rent hikes, estate agency fees. Now, this is one story we will be dissecting during the news surgery, because this is one problem the Nigerians are facing, especially when you consider the fact that, landlords habitually increases, are in the habit of increasing their house rent every other year, literally without any legislation in place to guide or also to protect the rights of the tenants, even when this landlord, do little or nothing to make the house habitable for the tenants. Still on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune newspaper, we also see external shocks, domestic factors pushing Nigeria's inflation higher, according to experts. Thus, on page 6 of the Nigerian Tribune, inhaled heavy marijuana use may increase lung cancer risks, researchers warn. Page 4. Well, this is a warning that has been on. We all grew up to see cigarettes commercials with the take-home note, smokers are liable to die young. But till today, in fact, till their kingdom come, there'll still be people who are indulging in the art of smoking. But of course, those are the major stories. Just last 2 messages before we leave the front page of the Nigerian Tribune. Governors Mag, Wike, Khan, others lament insecurity, preach tolerance, coexistence outside. Page 3 and 20 has details of the story. And the large story, which is on page 4, federal government reviews 417 grazing reserve to enhance food security. Mole's plan to modernize livestock farming. Well, we've been hearing this for the longest time. All right. Okay, so that heads us into the Daily Independent newspaper. The screaming headline: 2027 presidential election. Protest division follow Atiku's election as ADC candidate. Atiku scores 1,846,370 votes. Amechi 504,117. Hayatuddin 177,120 votes. All right, of course, Bob the Mile said we see Shetima demands maturity, tolerance ahead of 2027 polls, says Tinubu working to reduce economic pressure on Nigerians. Federal government committed to inclusive quality education for every child, allows page 6 has details of that story. We've also seen Khan urges federal government to prioritize schools protection, Nigerian children. Page 7 has details. Farmer leaders demand reforms to end Nigeria's drug import crisis. Page 6 has details of the story. Presidency seeks VDM's prosecution over alleged deepfake Tinubu clip. Page 6 has details of the story. Don't lose hope in Nigeria. ADC, PDP tells citizens amid hardship. Page 29 has details of the story. We haven't forgotten abducted students. Teachers, Tinubu orders security agencies to locate, rescue them. The order we've spoken about earlier. Of course, the last: no Nigerian deserves to die because of election, says Bamidele. Details are on page 7, and that takes us to the headlines, which happens to be the very last paper we'll be taking this morning. Screaming headline there: President Tinubu vows safe return of abducted children, orders stronger school security. We also see Nigerian army troops kill 317 terrorists, rescue 221 victims in May operations. Federal government launches ease of doing business engagement in Plateau State, and the Nigerian exchange market capitalization raises by 905.57 billionaire on renewed investor demand. And these are the stories making it to the front burner of conversations across the national dollars in Nigeria. And of course, these are stories that we'll all like to hear more about, of course, and that will take us into the news surgery where we'll dissect some of these news stories, particularly the ones that would be of interest to you and I as the common man walking the streets of Nigeria. This is where we put the brakes on and draw the curtain for a moment, a short break, and when we come back, Vera Phillips and Tammy will be here to take you on the other segment of the program. Just stay with us.